Welcome to another episode of Insights and Outcomes, a HealthEconomics.Com podcast. I'm Paige McGarry, Category Manager at Scientist.com, and your host for this show. On today's episode, we explore the evolving landscape of real-world evidence, exploring why regulators and payers view data differently, and how companies can bridge the gap between approval and reimbursement. We also dive into the future of evidence generation, discussing whether AI is ready to handle unstructured patient data and how the target trial framework is helping the industry overcome historical issues with data bias. Today, I'm joined by Radek Wasiak, an expert in real-world data generation and real-world evidence. He has provided research services to the life sciences for more than 2 decades, and he is currently the director of Adigens Health, a company that helps clients turn data into actionable insights and align regulatory and market access priorities to ensure they are equipped to meet market expectations. Okay. Radek, it's great to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Paige, for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. So as always, we're going to start off with a little game called Ins and Outs. Are you ready to go?
Let's do it. Yes or no? Okay. I'm all for it.
Yes or no? Yeah. It's only 2 options. 50-50 shot. Okay. Perfect. Keeping old shoes just in case you need them for yard work or painting shoes. I'm in on this one. We have, especially at home, we have a massive chest of just old shoes, and I have a hard time parting with shoes, weirdly enough. Maybe it's because my parents would only buy me one a year, so I have a weird attachment to shoes. I don't know, but I'm in on this one.
I'm going to be saying in, but that's because I'm a hoarder when it comes to shoes. You never know. You just never know. That's that. I don't hoard anything else, but when it comes to shoes, you know, it will rain, and I will need something to go out in the rain, right?
That's like, I don't want to ruin my new shoes. Yeah. Perfect. Agree there. Buying a book because the cover looks aesthetic, but never actually reading it. I would say I'm out on this one, actually. For the most part, when I buy a book, I intend to read it. I think there's maybe been 1 or 2 times I've bought a book because it looks cool and I've never actually opened it, but I still always intend to read it. So maybe I'm just lying to myself.
I'm out because I never buy books anymore, right? You just read them on
iPad.
So that is, hey, we moved on. It's a shame. Right, I still have things on the bookcase that I have never read. Let's just admit to that. But the purchase wasn't because of the cover.
Yeah, it's weird. I have an affinity to paper books, so I'm trying to buy them a lot more. But I also they're so heavy and annoying to carry. So I'm finding myself reading always on my Kindle. But
exactly.
Yeah. Talking to yourself while doing chores to stay focused. I'm in on this one. I hype myself up all the time. I would say, not to sound crazy, but I'm either always talking to myself, just having little conversations, or singing a song. I think I'm more always playing music, all chores.
See, I was about to say out because I do the singing when I cook, right? So, but it's given your response, I have to say in because I that's I guess counts. So I also talk to myself in my head when I exercise. So that's
I'm
another
the same
thing,
way.
Right? So,
I'm like 5 more seconds, 10 more seconds. You can do that. It's not that hard. You can do anything for 10 seconds. Okay, stalking real estate listings for houses you'll never buy. I wouldn't say I stalk them because I don't think I'm yet in that phase of my life, but I definitely will Zillow properties or look up properties. Like, that's a beautiful house. I wonder how much it costs. So I would say I'm 50-50 on this one.
I'm out. I have zero interest in that type of stuff. I mean, why?
Yeah.
I do know that people when I used to live in the States, people would spend their weekends going to open homes just for the sake of it.
Yeah, that I actually have friends that do that. Partly, they're looking to move to a different flat, so I think that's why.
That I get, but not. Well, okay. if there's open house for mansions in LA, okay, yes, I could see that. All right, that I could see. But otherwise, I'm judgy on this one. No.
Like, why are you wasting your weekend? Buying more plants, even though you've killed at least 5 already. I'm out on this one. I'm a terrible plant mom. I know that. I've accepted that. That is a flaw of mine, and I haven't tried to change it. I buy flowers all the time to put on the dining room table or on my desk. I really love to have flowers around, but I've given up on trying to take care of plants.
So, Paige, basically what you're saying is you're buying flowers because you know that they will be killed, so you cannot be blamed for it. So fair enough. Okay. I'm not a green person, right? Members of my family are. So I'm going to say I'm in because I like to look at them, but don't do it for I'm not going to be the one doing it. So from that perspective, I'm out.
Okay, perfect. That was our game.
All right. That was cool.
But now we can dive right in. So we are seeing a growing trend where regulators like the FDA or the EMA are increasingly willing to accept RWE to support approvals, especially in rare diseases. However, payers and HTA bodies often remain much more skeptical. So I was just curious, from your perspective, are we setting the industry up for an access chasm where drugs get approved based on RWE but fail to get reimbursed? And how do companies navigate that gap right now?
I wouldn't call this a chasm, right? Being in this space for now nearly, it's my 3rd decade, it was actually payers and HTA agencies that would look at the real world evidence to establish the burden of illness, to think about outcomes. That was the natural sort of connection. And if you're a payer, you are looking at real world evidence because that's the information about how the drug is selling and whether it's actually whether it leads to reduction in costs, etc. What we are seeing, though, is that regulators, because of the sensitivity of the topics, have become much more transparent in how they view and how they assess real-world evidence. You have explicit guidance and you have a lot of information about, in theory, what you're supposed to do. It's still a very complicated process, but you know what to benchmark against. There was a very interesting issue panel on this topic at ISPOR just a month ago, where examples were given on why evidence didn't matter. And the challenge is that oftentimes with payers, when the evidence is submitted, it's being ignored, right? And there's not multiple reasons for it. Sometimes it's not good quality evidence. Sometimes it's not commented on because it's viewed as irrelevant. For instance, clinical relevance or patient relevance was not fully established. But again, the challenge there is that the process of arriving at the conclusion of ignoring is not disclosed, right?
Interesting.
And that's where the problem exists. If you're asking, however, are payers and HTA agencies sort of forgetting RWE? My answer would be no. NICE, for instance, is at the forefront of looking at it. Many of the other agencies would look at it. It's just they use it in a slightly different way because their purpose is different. And that's really what it would be. If I were to make an advice for drug companies, is treat payers and HTAs as if you were to treat regulators. They have to receive as good of real world evidence as you would submit to the regulator, and many do already. Many life sciences companies think that way.
Yeah. Well, that makes complete sense. I mean, you would think they would need to see it. It's I think we've had a similar conversation around market access, and a lot of like VC firms are saying, oh, we won't invest unless there actually is a case for bringing this drug to market, or if there is, like, we need to have that evidence. And I think it's a similar sort of comparison between the two.
It is, and to sort of address one other point that was in your question. I believe that we're already seeing situations where the drug had a lot of real-world evidence being used as part of their regulatory submission, and the discussion about reimbursement is going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say this is because of RWE. It is because the way you pay for rare disease or drugs for rare conditions, or even ultra-target therapies, is so specific that our healthcare systems are not well set up to do it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Regulator is not asking the question how much it's going to cost me, right? But the payer will, and if the drug costs a few $1 million,
especially because with rare diseases, it's such a small market, such a small patient population.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That is tricky. And now there's a lot of buzz around moving beyond claims data and tapping into EHRs using AI to read unstructured clinician notes. And it sounds promising, but we often know that reality can be a bit more messy than perception. So are we actually at a point where AI-derived evidence is quote unquote regulatory grade, or is that still a few years away? And what needs to happen for, say, a conservative decision maker to trust data that's been extracted by an algorithm?
Let me unpack this one, because this is a loaded question.
It's a lot.
This is a loaded question.
It's a layered question.
So yeah, there's like 5 layers to it. Let me. I think layer number 1, or fallacy number 1 in many people's thinking. Unstructured data have been used for years. For years. It's just it was processed manually. I can claim that I was the initial machine, because one of my first research projects was looking at unstructured electronic health records to investigate what caused the low back pain disorder, right? And I had to look into it because this was in the notes.
Yeah.
So what we really talking about is not the use of unstructured notes or data, but actually doing it at scale, right? Now, the in-between, up to date, was basically doing chart reviews, which was a clinician doing the or research nurse or any other medical professional reading the information that they had on the screen and populating the electronic case report form to structure the information. That was what now we want the machine to do it. Yeah. Okay? And it makes perfect sense. Perfect
Absolutely.
Sense.
Saves time.
Right. Exactly. So, assuming that's the case, what we're talking about is doing it at scale, then technology is there. I don't think technology is a differentiator. Many of the companies that I see out there are trying to differentiate on our system is better than the other. It is possible. Yeah. I cannot quantify it. Right? It's because it's commercial secrets of what you do and what you don't do. And is there value in it? Don't know. Yeah. And what I do know is that the problem is actually getting access to the information in a structured form that is done in a way that is protecting the patient confidentiality, right? For research purposes, that's a big problem. I think it's getting there to being solved. That's the part of technology that we need to make sure that we do. And then the second one is the inference, how it's being then coded the right one. And here, all we need to do is large-scale validation studies, right? It's being done on study by study purposes, and if you do it, then it kind of works, right? Think about doing a literature review. In the past, and now you're having tools that are basically doing, in a way, what we're talking about, AI working with unstructured data, analyzing the literature, and then you have a human sort of assessing, was this right or was it not right? Same thing applies here. Once we do enough of those, the machine is going to get super good at it, right? And then you're going to be doing spot checks, et cetera, et cetera. The very final thing that you will need to do is get this validated in specific situations by the regulator and doing it according to the guidance, which is going to be pretty much identical to the real-world evidence guidance. Show me the provenance, be transparent, many other issues that are there, including what I already discussed about the ethical considerations.
I was going to say, I think the ethics and the privacy is what is the most interesting to me, because is the data being used to train the different models? I mean, how do patients know it's completely de-identified? Like, I think there's so many considerations that go into that, and it just adds a whole another layer into the conversation. I think that
it does. The privacy issue. I mean, is this not ethical? I think in the end, if this is to help us get better treatments to the market faster, it is ethical. Yeah, right. I agree. But there needs to be guardrails, because actually, is it violating certain commercial secrets by doing this, right? Well, that's why we started getting the closed systems, and companies are building their own. What is it? Agents, right? Where
their own LLMs
their LLMs. That actually probably is the future, and there's going to be a winner emerging from this battle, or a couple of winners, just like in any other part of life sciences, and then someone is going to come in and disrupt it. Yeah,
and it's going to change again. No, it is curious. It's a fascinating. I'm very interested to see what the world of medicine looks like, life science looks like 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Who knows at that point? And one of the historical criticisms of RWE is that you can torture the data until it confesses, essentially finding the results you want in any data set within reason, of course, and more or less manipulate the data to fit your needs. Do you believe the industry has finally standardized its methods enough to sort of shed this reputation? And what is the single biggest challenge researchers need to make to ensure their real-world control arms are taken seriously in an RCT, randomized trial?
It's true that there has been a lot of bad real-world evidence. And it's also true that there has been a lot of bad randomized clinical trials. People learn, right? So what we have is, if you think about it, clinical development, the first time you run a trial, you learn something from it, and then you run a second one, and then eventually you get it, and it doesn't mean that all of them were really well designed, or this is the same thing with real-world evidence. And it is very true that with real-world evidence, there is that potential for you to create something that just meets your needs, because that's what the data are, right? And here's where we get into a very interesting situation. I'm actually very, very close to this topic because of at Adigens Health, where one of my co-founders is Miguel Hernan, alongside Mona Khalid, who comes more from the pharma setting. He is an academic who coined the term of target trial. And it's a solution to what you just described as this torture the data. It is an argument to run your RWE study, your observational research, as if you were running a trial. And what's that solution? It's about pre-specifying. In an RCT, you have to pre-specify everything. Let's do that starting with a research question that you have. You pre-specify, and then you see how you can address it, and be explicit about how you're going to be doing it. Again, you pre-specify what you're going to do. So that way you control for a lot of biases, which are then then there are methods to deal with whatever is left over, right?
Yeah.
And methods will never be unified, but the pre-specification is everything, right? So this is the change that we're seeing right now. FDA, EMA, NICE, many other agencies are calling target trial framework, target trial approach as the way to work with observational data. That's going to be, we're going to coalesce around this theme. And it doesn't mean that it's easy to do, right? It seems easy in practice. But it also means you cannot not look at the data. In order for you to emulate that this hypothetical target trial, because that's the research question you're posing, you have to look at the data to establish whether it's feasible to do so. If you cannot do it, you need to change the research question.
Yeah.
That was what people were doing when they were running bad research. They were just sort of changing things around until they arrived at the answer that they liked. That world is about to end, or it's already over, given what the regulators and payers are requiring.
That makes sense, and this sort of leads into my next question, which, if you look 5 to 10 years in the future, do you see a world where RWE actually replaces the RCT for certain indications, or will RCTs always remain more or less the pinnacle of evidence generation? And where is the ceiling for real-world evidence?
There's no ceiling for real-world evidence. That's not just answer the last question. Because the use cases are so broad.
Yeah.
And if you can run a randomized clinical trial, you should run a randomized clinical trial. Yeah. It's one of the dangers that I see with how people are interpreting the target trial approach is to say, well, I'm going to take a shortcut. I'm not going to run my trial because it's a little difficult. I'm just going to do the target trial emulation and
yeah.
Okay, forget about that, right? One of the problems that we are seeing right now is that people are, in rare conditions or in oncology, are running single-arm trials, and they're trying to retrofit external control. Mm-hmm. You should probably think about it differently. What you should be doing is, when you are designing your single-arm trial, at that point you should be already thinking about your comparator, where the data is going to be, so that your single-arm trial is designed with the comparator in mind.
Yeah.
Again, this is the target trial framework telling you, right? So I'm seeing the world coming together where we've got tools. Depending on what the problem is, you go towards that tool. We have demystified real-world evidence as mm-hmm. It can be done with really good quality data, and it can be done in the right framework, run to get to the causal inference. We can control for major sources of bias. So I believe that's why my answer was there's no ceiling.
Yeah.
And we just have to remember what we have to remember, right? That there is the element of randomization in the clinical trial that is just so helpful to answer very basic questions. So to me, that's where we're going to land in 5 to 10 years. And to tell you something else, for label extensions, when the safety of the compound of the drug has already been established, its effectiveness has already been established, there's already precedents where you could use real-world evidence to get the extension of the label. Pfizer did it for Ibrance in male breast cancer, right? There was no, they used safety reports and they used the real-world data to get the approval. There was no mm-hmm. single randomized clinical trial to do that. I think we're going to see such uses. How you run trials in ultra-targeted therapies or N-of-1 medicine is another question. Is there a trial to be run? Maybe the patient is going to be their own comparator, right? Just their own control, so to speak, right? Before and after. That is going the thinking about this is going to evolve, and I'm very much looking forward to the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah. I hope to be doing more of sitting and not doing it and observing rather than doing it in that time, given my age, but it's definitely something I will be observing with interest.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Radek. Seriously, it was a very instructive conversation. I'm sure I learned a ton today, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paige, for having me. It was a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more listeners like you find the show. Want more HUR, RWE, and market access insights? Stay connected with Theoretically Speaking and HealthEconomics.com for the latest trends shaping healthcare decision-making. Until then, keep asking the big questions, challenging assumptions, and driving smarter healthcare decisions. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Paige McGarry, and we'll see you next time.